And welcome to the NBA Report, a weekly show where we talk about basketball off the court for about 2 to 3 minutes and give you the latest on the NBA. Let's go. As you may have noticed, there isn't a ticker today because we're going to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. On Tuesday night, Sports Illustrated released an investigative report profiling history of sexual harassment and abuse within the Mavericks organization. It showcases that people higher up in the organization have systematically subjected women in the organization to sexual harassment and abuse. This includes former president and CEO, as well as one of the reporters on staff who was actually banned from going to cover the team in Canada because of his arrest for domestic abuse, and then kept on by the organization until the second instance of the same accusations. So let's start with first thing and first thing only. If you have any doubt on what camp you're in, or if you're in any other camp, then and everybody who's responsible for this should be reprimanded and should face the repercussions for their actions, you're wrong. You also may be a horrible person, so I would check with people around you to make sure that that's not true. Second, there's going to be an investigation by the NBA, and I think this is a huge thing that we need to address. But first, let's address what's going to happen with Mark Cuban as the ownership. I don't think he's going to sell the team. I don't think they're going to force him into selling the team. I don't think that Mark Cuban necessarily may have known to the extent to this happened with this organization. Let me make this clear. I do believe that he knew that there were issues within his organization. He has commented that there were issues. He has commented that he knew of the first instance of abuse from the writer, and then he kept him on so he wouldn't do this somewhere else. That's like keeping a thief in your organization so he doesn't steal from somewhere else. No, you fire him, and then you make sure he has that against his reputation. You make sure that people know that this is what he was guilty of. You don't just keep them on. It's a horrible excuse. You don't just do that. So statements by Mark Cuban highlight that he knew that certain things were happening. Actions within the team highlight that they knew that certain things were happening. I don't believe for a second that anybody who has the amount of control over the organization and the amount of interest doesn't know what happens in that organization on some level. I understand that it is culturally appropriate in the past to isolate yourself from that kind of stuff by the don't ask, don't tell policy. By purposefully ignoring these things and not listening to them to make sure that you don't know about them as long as the money keeps coming in. And we're in the middle of a change where that's no longer appropriate. And I could see a scenario in which Mark Cuban would not know the full extent of the rot within this organization. But there was absolutely no way that he didn't know that something was happening like that. And the lack of action is entirely on Mark Cuban. And he should face repercussions for that. I'm not sure where the NBA will go with this, but the investigation will show. Now, let's talk about the investigation. The NBA will obviously look into the Dallas Mavericks, but that's not enough. I think that at this point, they will need to look into all of the 30 teams, all of the 30 organizations. I mean, sports has a history of being built on masculinity, on sometimes hyper-toxic masculinity. We still have cheerleaders for some unbeknownst to me reason, because I don't think people still go to games to say, hey, I want to see these women dance in between my basketball games. Why? There's establishments for that. Like, there's different levels. Like, this is an archaic system that was put in place to please the male audience, and it's still there for some unknown to me reason. And sports are built on a lot of foundations of that. A lot of corporations everywhere outside of sports are built on a foundation of that kind of treatment of women, and I think this needs to be the first step for the NBA to address that. I think they need to investigate other teams. I think they need to take this investigation further than just the Dallas Mavericks to make sure that they are taking all of the necessary and appropriate steps to prevent this from happening in the league as a whole. Furthermore, I think they should set up a system for people from inside those organizations to come out and report instances of abuse or harassment. That body, whatever it may be a department or a committee, it should be housed within the NBA internally. It should be independent of the all 30 teams, and it should provide a voice for people to come out and speak up if they see this happening, or for people who are victims of this to come out and speak up and then the NBA should investigate those instances as well. This should never stop at just looking at the Dallas Mavericks, firing the people responsible, and just saying, hey, okay, cool, we did this. Our job is done. We've solved it. You haven't. It's a huge issue. It goes beyond the NBA. I think the NHL, I think the NFL, I think the MLB, I think all of the sports organizations that we have should take steps to look into this. That doesn't mean that they will, but the NBA could be the first one. And Adam Silver has so far done a lot of great things, the way he's handled the Donald Sterling situation when he first took over, and everything there since has been a great indication that Adam Silver knows what he's doing. And this is the NBA's chance to prove that. This is how they're going to work through this. And I think this might be one of the biggest challenges they face right now, but they have to get this right. There is no half measures when it comes to this. Enough is enough. And I think that the most appropriate step is to take this investigation beyond the Dallas Mavericks and to set up that independent committee that allows members of the organizations of all 30 teams to report instances of such behavior and provide the NBA with the information necessary to fix this within the organization. Thank you guys for watching today. I'm sorry that this has been such a kind of somber topic, but this is something that we have to talk about. We have to talk about this seriously, and we have to continue talking about this for as long as we can. But if you enjoyed what you saw, if you enjoyed some of the other videos, please check them out. Subscribe below, and we have these coming out weekly, and we're going to be talking about basketball week to week to week. So see you guys next week.